here at dynamicengr.com, which stands for Dynamic Engineering, evidently, is a story written by Albert entitled Facts About the Mysterious Coral Castle in Florida. And Albert begins, there's a city in Florida called Homestead, and it's near Miami and off the South Dixie Highway. Here in this city, you will find the amazing Coral Castle, which was originally named Rockgate Park. It's a site designed to excite the senses and to challenge your understanding of engineering. In fact, an information sheet at the site reads, what you're about to see is an engineering marvel that has been compared with Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Here are some fun facts about the Coral Castle that may tickle your fancy. It was built by a man from Latvia in 1923. His name was Edward Leedskalnin. It took him 28 years to do it alone. And he worked privately, so that very few people saw him work at it. He also worked with only simple basic tools like ropes and pulleys, picks, winches. Maybe he worked with winches too, but he definitely worked with winches. Despite the name, it isn't really a castle at all. It's a collection of quarried stone, sculptured into many types of shapes. Well, one part's kind of like a castle. This part here. This is the part where he lived on the second floor. That's what I think the castle is. He built some areas to look like a house. I guess that's this area. Oh no, this is the outside of this area. Some areas to look like a house that have chairs and tables along with slab walls. He also built an accurate sundial, crescent moon chairs, and a water fountain. There are a Polaris telescope and an obelisk. There's also a castle tower that's 2 stories high. It isn't even really made of coral either. It's actually made of limestone. And more than 1,000 tons of it was used in construction. With only a few exceptions, all these objects were made from single pieces of stone. They weighed an average of 15 short tons per stone, with the heaviest at 30 short tons. 2 of the tallest monoliths are 25 feet tall. One of the famous features of Coral Castle was a perfectly balanced stone gate. The mystery of how this gate was designed lasted for decades, until it stopped working in 1986. To remove the gate, 6 men and a 50 short-ton crane had to be involved. They discovered that the rock rested on a truck bearing that had finally rusted. They fixed it. And ironically, the modern fix lasted only 9 years before it failed again. Again, it was repaired, but it no longer swings as easily as it did before. Supposedly, Leedskalnin was spurned by his 16-year-old fiancée on what was supposed to be their wedding day. His creation was his way to prove his worth to his girl and to the world. This story of Coral Castle and the young bride-to-be may be the inspiration for the Billy Idol song, Sweet 16. The marvels of Coral Castle have fascinated generations of visitors, and many have offered wild theories about its creation. Some of these theories have mentioned alien technology or supernatural powers. Coral Castle and its fantastic features have been accessible for almost a century now. It's a modern 20th century marvel far ahead of its time, and it's a testament to one man's dedication to engineering excellence and the mystery of how he built it. We have another reading here at thetravel.com. Written by Kirsten McCarthy, called 20 Facts Surrounding Coral Castle in Florida That Prove It's Way More Impressive Than It Looks. Let's begin at number 20. It's a countdown. That which we know already, I'll just skip. Coral Castle was mostly built in secret. The creator of this fascinating structure was a highly private fellow. He often greeted visitors of his masterpiece when they came to view his work. But during the construction, he would create his castle under cover of night. These secret work hours led to much speculation regarding how the work was getting done. Ed Leedskalnin did not get his final wish, which was to be buried at Coral Castle. The man who gets to lay claim to this work of art never had his final wish granted, which was to be buried in the stone compound that he built. He passed away at age 64, but was put underground elsewhere. Coral Castle follows the structure of a Freemasons' lodge. There are many aspects of Coral Castle that look incredibly similar to structures that were built and used by the Freemason Society. Historical buffs from all over the globe are drawn to this building to witness those intricacies and ponder what kind of affiliation the builder might have had with the Freemasons. We know the Coral Castle gate weighs 9 tons. Just the gate. Here's a little bit more about Billy Idol. Word on the street is that rocker Billy Idol wrote his song Sweet 16 about the creator of Coral Castle and his spurned love affair with his fiancée. We had no clue that Idol was so fascinated by geographic anomalies or century-old love stories. Coral Castle is on the National Register of Historic Places. A single man with a single dream once owned Coral Castle. He wanted to create a palace made of stone. After his death, his dream castle was passed into the hands of a relative and then another owner, and it finally landed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1984, where it should be. We know it was created by one person. We know he worked on it for 28 years. We know he had a 4th grade education. We know the Coral Castle was built because of spurned love. The story goes, Leedskalnin up and left his home country of Latvia because his 16-year-old fiancée left him the evening before they were to wed. He built Coral Castle to prove to his ex and the world that he was indeed capable of greatness and far more than an impoverished, uneducated laborer. The creator, Edward Leedskalnin, lived in the 2nd story of the castle. He was undoubtedly the king of his own castle. He not only built the now historically recognized building over the course of his lifetime and opened it up to inquiring minds, but he lived there too. He fashioned a room on the 2nd floor, specifically for his residence. Coral Castle was moved block by block in 1936. After building Coral Castle in Florida City, Florida, something like that. It doesn't say here, but it was in Florida. Development plans to start a nearby subdivision began, and Edward decided to move his entire property to Homestead, Florida. He single-handedly dismantled his castle at night and moved each block 10 miles north to the new location, where he rebuilt and even expanded his residence. Visitors used to have a secret tour system. Only the cool kids have the secret knock, right? Writes the author. Mr. Leedskalnin allowed visitors to come and tour his property at their leisure, but visitors had to abide by his secret knock rules. Visitors were charged a single dime for entry, and they had to ring the bell outside of the castle, but only 2 times. because Edward was a private guy who preferred to work in quiet and solitude at night. Many murmurings ramped up regarding his methods of creation. 2 teenagers swore they saw him casting spells and performing chants as giant boulders magically lifted off the ground.